I'm going to pick out a few events, a few key things, and a few takeaways, and I'm going to tell you how everyone feels about it, some of the hassles, struggles, joys, and the private stuff. Let's talk together for a moment about Episode 6, Alone, Season 11. Episode 6 played last night. To me, watching it, my eyes got big, and I said to my wife, wow, everybody's on the struggle bus this week. You can see some contestants in some pretty bad shape, including me. Not going to spoil it. Spoiler alert. You have to watch the episode before you watch this video. But here's a nature fact for today. The wilderness is life and death. This episode is a good time to talk about this because you see, you've been seeing a lot of killing happen of animals on the show so far, but you also see now contestants finding that line to walk between success and failure. That's the line between life and death in nature. And as I look at nature, as I look at the wilderness out there, that's what I'm staring at while I'm on Alone right now, is that rhythm, harmony, and circle of life and death. This is what the wilderness embodies, really. I mean, we can, in our lives, we can see it in kind of a long-term loop, but they're playing out in an autumn time in the wilderness. You can really see the circle of life and death happening. I like it because I like to live in that tension zone between life and death. In my opinion, that's where the best living is found. It's not over on the safe side or over on the dead side, but there's the tension zone in the struggle between life and death. I like to live there, and I'm really feeling that at this point in the show. I always see more life than death. I've been in war, and there's been battles taking place around me before, and I've experienced death. So you can't think that I'm just talking out of my hat here. I always see more life than death. That's where I find God, because there's just this much more life than death in the wilderness, and God is there, keeping things alive with His voice, with His life-giving breath, so to speak. I'm going to focus my time, not just recapping the events, but I'm going to focus my time every week on the contestant's perspective about what happens. Firstly, it is a struggle bus right now. I looked at myself on screen. I think I came up first last night, so look at myself, and I'm like a skull. I was sitting on the couch watching like, whoa! And that's the same thing I noticed looking in the viewfinder of the camera as I was filming on Alone, which is why I stopped and I took the time to shave, and I took the time to think, okay, now the game is about taking care of myself. But it's hard for me to do that. I just start working again. That way for me in life. But it is rough for everybody. Everybody's losing that fresh energy. The fresh energy that you have when you get out there, it's gone for everyone now. What remains is the core. And so everyone is feeling the effects of having no carbs to eat and no sugars. Well, I guess some people had berries. I didn't have any berries. So I'm really feeling the effects of no sugars, but everyone's feeling the effects of their diet just changing, their diet being more irregular or more simply protein-based. And everyone's like getting skinny, losing energy, losing weight. I think it put infographics on screen about how much weight Sarah and Dub had lost. And guys, you just hemorrhage energy in the wild. If you don't have any supply of like the frontiersmen would have of salt and coffee, some flour, and things like that, you just hemorrhage energy. So it's getting really rough for everyone. And that is putting everyone right on the edge of sickness. That's why I'm saying we're really reaching that tension zone between life and death, is because everyone is walking a fine line now. I think that's really how I would describe every moment going forwards from now, is that everyone's walking a fine line. Any little thing, and you're sick, or your digestion is messed up, or something, or you fail. It's a fine line. What's really rough is hygiene right now. It's mud, it's muck. This delta floods everywhere where we're standing, except maybe not up on Williams Hill and Jake's little cliff, but everywhere else where we're walking, standing, and working, there's water well over our heads every spring. There's mud caked over all the trees. everything is mucky and muddy. And so hygiene for food is a big problem. Every time you process a fish, every time you butcher a fish, you have meat, you have the eggs that you want to save. And you're looking around and it's like, my pot is full of drinking water that maybe you just boiled a little while ago. You don't want to set your fish in there because you're going to need a drink, but you got slime all over your hands. So, okay, you get it all in the pot, you start cooking, you got slime on your hands, and if you step away to go wash your hands off at the river, something's going to steal that food, even right out of your pot. It's a fact, even right out of your pot, which is going to bring us to William in a minute. But the hygiene is a nightmare. Every time you touch your pot, you're blackened all over the outside. You can get that black on your face. The big thing is keeping yourself well. Being overseas a lot in some backwater places, I've had a lot of practice at this, which I felt helped me. But basically, everything that touches your mouth, your lips, or goes in your body cannot be cross-contaminated with stuff. You can't be having your hands in the fish and then putting fish in your mouth with your hands. You can't be having your Leatherman multi-tool gutting fish and then putting it in your pot to get food. You can't be doing this stuff. And the water, everything, you can't be having your lips on the outside of a pot where your fish is rubbed against and then you're going to be drinking it unless that has been in the fire. Hygiene is becoming, at this moment in the show, nightmarishly difficult. Then you've got your clothes that you can wash. And Isaiah talked about taking off his underwear to wash for the first time. But in that early season, I think it's important to make a point. If you ever get on the show, make a point in the early season to take 2 pairs of socks and wash one of them every single day, and wash your underwear every couple of days. In the back of my mind, I had a Marine buddy shouting at me. He's a combat medic, and he's seen plenty of infections, and he's like, "You're going to get wounded, and it's going to get infected from all that nastiness." And it was in the back of my mind all the time. And so it helped with washing laundry, with the hygiene and stuff. But of course, when it gets colder, you're not going to be doing it as much. And you're going to get blackened on your face. It's going to be that way. But hygiene is a nightmare. I didn't realize that I run around without a shirt so much on the show. I apologize. But also, it's the right move, because if you only have, basically what you have on Alone is 2 sets of clothes. Now, you have a few more socks than that, but for your main clothes, you have 2 sets. And if you have 2 sets of clothes, and if you're busy and you can't get to wash them every day, the right move is to not wear them sometimes. You don't want to be crawling half inside a moose with your only t-shirt on. I think you should just not wear the clothes sometimes. Go tribal, go caveman. If you can stand it in the air with the chill, just get the clothes off of you and be like, I will live through a whole day, and the dirt from today will only be collected on my skin, and I'll wash it off quite easily with a warm sock in my pot of hot water or something like that. So hygiene, total nightmare. What else is a total nightmare is losing food. This brings us to William. The pine marten that he's got goes into his smoker and strips his pike, and the gray jays, or he calls them whiskey jacks, I think, that are out there, are just darting in there like crazy. This doesn't get shown enough on the show. It's a nightmare. If you're sitting at your camp, if I'm sitting at my camp right now and I have a pot of lard on, or I have fish that I'm about to cook, or I'm smoking stuff, you've got to walk to the river, because you can't, it's not a good place to set up your shelter down there. It's a cold sump on the river, muddy, lots of reasons not to set up a shelter there. So you've got to walk down there. You're out of sight from your pot of food for just this long. And while I'm sitting here, there'd be at least 6 creatures, from pine marten to those birds, watching the food that I'm doing. And before you're out of sight, they're already trying to get it. You don't have containers to put it in. You've got one pot. You've got the lid that you can put on it. If your pot is a light metal one, they can knock it over and take stuff out of there. I would come back to find chunks of fish this big chunks of fillet this big or bigger, with gray jays dragging them across the ground. Just off they go. They can't fly with it, but they'll take it. And they would tag team. They're very smart. They'll tag team you. So I'm feeling it for William as it shows, losing this food. We're all struggling with this. You can't step away, but you have to. When you're smoking food, when you're processing fish, when you're about to cook, when you're needing to get water, you have to step away, and they swoop right in. It's not like that you're away for long enough for the animals to smell it and find it. They're watching this at all times because they've learned that you have food. They're good at stealing it. So it's a big struggle. It's a big struggle trying to develop something that they can't get into or get the food out of. while you have to step away. That's a nightmare. And right now it's beginning to really bite because every morsel of food is becoming more valuable at this date in the show. And you're just becoming more tired and irritated at it. So, Sarah, missing the grouse with her arrows. We're all feeling those moments. Right now, I'm missing squirrels, usually, when I shoot at them right now. I only get to shoot at one occasionally, but when I shoot at it, I usually miss it right now because my stance with my bow is compromised because of tiredness. And so I look at Sarah doing that, and I'm like, oh, I feel you. But what she says, she sits down eventually, and she says that this raven is laughing at her, and that was one of the special moments in this episode to me. She's like, this raven's laughing at me, and she tells it to shut up. But at this point, I think what she's feeling and what we're all feeling is that the whole world is laughing at you. Every mistake that you're doing, you're feeling it so much because you don't have the energy to just turn around and overcome that mistake so quickly. So you're feeling that mistake, and then that mistake grows in your mind, and the cameras are always filming it. And you look at those cameras, and at this point, I don't think anyone is friends with the cameras right now because those cameras are catching all of your mistakes, your struggles. It's the first taste of the cameras really catching your weakness. And it's not fun, it's not comfortable, and you feel that the whole world in that moment is laughing at you from their couches. It is intense. It's very intense, and I think I caught that in Sarah's voice when she talked to that raven. It's a very intense feeling that the whole world is mocking as you struggle. That's the pressure of Alone. Okay, Isaiah brings up a struggle that we're all feeling as well. Maybe not to the degree that Isaiah is. He's starting to have heart palpitations, shortness of breath, and it's scary. And here's the deal that you start to realize about now, is that you have these things come up in your body and you wonder about them. Everybody's having some little pain, or this or that, but Isaiah's having a serious one, and it comes up in your body, and you wonder about it. It gnaws at your mind a little bit, and you can't ask somebody. You can't be like, oh, hey, you ever felt like this before? You can't call anybody, talk to anybody. Now, I'm not a guy that goes to doctors much. I had never been to a doctor for anything in my life until I was almost 30. But still, there's a comfort in having some community in ailments, is because you've got somebody at least watching you. You've got at least somebody to bounce the feeling off of, to make them aware that you're feeling that way. There's a comfort in that. But there's none. You start to realize that you can't ask anybody what's wrong with you. You have to figure it out. And in the back of your mind, you start to realize that there could be something seriously wrong with me. And I'm the only one that would know and be tasked with making decisions about it and responding. That's a lot of pressure. Isaiah's feeling that right now. And let me tell you, when they come out for the medical check, you can't ask them about it. You can only tell them. You can make them aware, and he does, I'm glad. But you can't ask them and be like, what do you think? Am I okay? Is that just fine? Am I just having heart palpitations because I'm a little weaker? You cannot ask them. They won't engage you on it. This is because of the integrity of the producers keeping the Alone experience actually alone. You can try with all your might to get them to engage you on a subject, to engage them and get them talking and be like, and even trick them while the medics are there and try to get them talking, and they won't, because they'll simply reply, you're alone. And they keep that integrity, which is radical and kind of awesome. Didn't feel awesome. By the time day 21 rolls around, you're ready for a little conversation. People show up, and you're like, oh, yay! And you're like, I'll just chat with them about what's going on at their camp right now. Nope. They're tight. They're really tight. They're professional. They've seen it all. So it's a big strain on the mind to know that you can't run anything that you're feeling by anybody to see if it's dangerous or not. Especially when it's internal stuff like Isaiah has going on. That's a huge pressure. Can't be overstated. Dub. I feel like Dub this episode struggled probably less than anybody, except for maybe losing that fish, which can just happen. But his reaction captured our hearts when he lost that fish. But I feel like he is showing his strength and knowledge just tops right now. And here's what I picked out. If you look at his shelter, they haven't shown him work on it anymore. But if you look at it, you'll notice that he worked on it a ton. It looks like a cozy burrow. He has put tons of that horsetail grass on top of that, then put his tarp on it in this dome. He's got his fireplace going in there. I respect it. It's tiny, but I really respect his shelter. It's cozy. It's snug. He's done a good job. He's done a lot of work on that now that they haven't shown. And there's one more contestant to mention, which is Jake. And Jake is not only my friend, but I respect Jake because of the way that he handles things and the knowledge that he has in the wilderness. I'm glad that they showed him making that pipe because it shows how crafty Jake is, how good he is at stuff. But when Jake, his intestines got impacted and he had to go and he talked about his brother, it's just not how I saw it happening. Jake really is a wilderness man. He is a frontiersman to the core, and he knows how to handle himself out there. And I feel like if anybody were given another shot and would just blow everyone's expectations away, I would put Jake at the top of my list for that. And I felt every tear that just escaped from his eye as he realized the journey is over. It's very serious. I'm going to wrap up this episode by telling you exactly how to kill a moose on Alone, how you can prepare for this, and how you can make sure that it happens. All right. I was speaking with Jordan Jonas about this. He's killed a moose. Now I've killed a moose. I guess we're the moose killers. And so we compared like what we both had going on. И мы говорили по-русски вместе, потому что он говорит очень хорошо по-русски. Я говорю по-русски тоже чуть-чуть. И I'm going to back up. That might be too much to take in. What I'm saying is, Jordan Jonas and I found a common denominator that you need to do if you're going to kill a moose on Alone. You don't need to start with your archery skills. You don't need to shoot. You don't need to start with your stalking skills or your calling skills. You need to learn Russian. If you're going to kill a moose on Alone, that's where you need to start. You need to start by learning Russian. And of course I'm joking, but it's just incidental and kind of a fun fact that Jordan speaks Russian because he's lived in Russia. I speak Russian because I've been over there a bunch. And now that we've killed moose, we started talking. We're like, man, what did you have going on? I was like, I think it's the Russian angle. I really think it's just the Russian angle. So those of you preparing for the show, of course, get out there and practice with your recurve. Of course, practice your stalking skills, practice those moose sounds. Here's a fun fact. I had never made a moose sound before in my life. I had just recalled hearing a moose sound years ago in Minnesota. I heard a cow bawling out in the brush, and then I went, and I'm like, I tried to dig in my memory. I just got to make that sound. So I don't know if it was a good one or not, but we got the moose. But start with that, practice that, all that kind of stuff. But most importantly, learn Russian. Shoot a bow and learn Russian. That's your best chance of getting a moose. And of course, I'm glad we can have a little bit of fun with that. And I'm glad that we can still have fun watching every episode of our favorite show on earth. Keep having fun at it. And keep sending all of us questions. Keep engaging. And we, contestants, are enjoying all of this with you. Be kind. We're humans. We can do that. We're not animals. We're not wolves that would rip apart the weak people. We are kind. And also, oh man, I had a mental note of what I was going to say next and went right out of my head. Let's keep it going.